So the moment we've all been waiting for, Berserker issue number 1 has finally been released, and yeah, we're going to break it down. I'm going to give you my thoughts and my final review. So from the very beginning of the comic, we're really thrust into a mission where Berserker is basically going berserk. That's how I'm describing it. We're not let up at all about how strong and intense he is, and he's just going around punching and shooting and killing and smashing and just being destructive and gory and bloody all at the same time, and it's great. It's just crazy to see that, this is our first introduction to Berserker. I know we've had like first looks and stuff like that, but as far as just opening up the pages of the comic book for issue number 1, it's not like, hey, I'm Berserker, kids standing up in the classroom, give us some stuff about yourself. It's like, no, thrust him into a mission, show him what he's all about, and that's freaking crazy, guys, and it's awesome at the same time. Leads me up to my next topic. Let's talk about blood and gore, because this comic is super bloody and super gory, more than I would thought it would be, but it works. It goes with the story, and it helps tell the story of how strong and intense he is, and it kind of gives us an idea of, like, this is basically John Wick on steroids, and it's just crazy to me to see that, people's brains being bashed in, and you have brain guts on his hands, and, just the art. What I find interesting is the U.S. government sends him out first and just basically follows suit and says, all right, you go do your thing, and then we'll come up after you and, assist you if needed, but it looks like you got it. But this comic does not shy away from blood and gore, and I would say that in some ways it, maybe goes over the top, but it doesn't. It actually helps it out really well and helps tell the story of Berserker being Berserk. So I feel like I noticed that this comic does have some Matrix references. So there is a part where Berserker is given a pill that is split that has a half red and half blue, which obviously reminds me of, Morpheus from the Matrix, who offers Neo a red pill or a blue pill, or Mr. Anderson at the time, red pill or blue pill. And so I find it ironic that in this iteration, the colors are combined. And I'm not really quite sure what he's taking the pill for, if it's to help him remember his past because he's kind of has a mental block, or if it's to help him be more mortal. And we'll get to that later on in this review, but I'm kind of not sure what these pills are for. Let me know in the comments below what you think you figured out about the pill, if it's for one of those two things, or if it's something else that maybe I missed. The other reference would be there's a part where Berserker actually leans back to avoid it being shot in the face from a gunman from behind, and actually, I guess, messes up and gets his nose, I think, is blown off, but nonetheless gets shot in the face and it hurts his nose. But the way the comic looks, it seems like if he's making some type of, the famous Matrix Neo, back shot where the bullets come in 3D at him. That's what it reminded me of. Okay, so this comic does a good job of discussing immortality versus mortality. So we learn right away that Berserker doesn't really like being immortal, and he doesn't like that, he's lived for what we now know is 80,000 years, and he just, I guess, is tired. I guess that's what I would take it as. He's tired. He doesn't quite remember everything that's happened to him, although he does remember certain details, but he wants to basically become mortal. He's tired of being immortal, and we see that, as he's thrust into this mission and he's taking all this damage, like his hand looks like it's, fried and blown up, and his face, from the time he enters the mission to the time he leaves, he's basically just this beaten up person, missing chunks of skin and stuff like that, and they're gonna heal him and make him better. But it reminds me a lot of Logan, Wolverine. It kind of reminds me of that, in that he's maybe lived too long is what he feels like he's done. He's lived too long, or he hasn't found a reason to continue living. So while he is not going to kill himself, he would like to find a way to make himself mortal, so maybe he can just die a natural death and live out the rest of his life like a normal person. So what's the government up to? So we know that in our first look talk about Berserker, we know that the government is helping him and he's helping the government, but we don't exactly know why they're running all these tests on him. He automatically talks about how he thinks they're only using him to clone Berserker and make more Berserkers. I'm sure we'll have to find out later in the series if that's true or not, but we don't really know if the government's really helping him or taking advantage of him. I would suspect more of the later, because in most, TV, movie, comics, books, the government is very rarely, given a good light, and is rarely ever an ally. I mean, even in the new Marvel shows on Disney Plus, the government is not good, obviously, with sword, etc. So my guess is that he's already caught on to that, and the doctor that's helping him is probably the one few ally that he actually has that is probably trying to be innocent and actually help him, while the government that she's working for is probably going to be a villain later on in the series. So this reminds me very much of John Wick meets Wolverine, and I think that's a great combination. I know that, when people think about a Keanu Reeves comic, and given the premise and the imagery and stuff like that, we're like, this is like John Wick on steroids, which is true, But I think this is very much, you know, John Wick meets Wolverine, as far as John Wick was a badass who did a lot of action and, you know, never shied away from fighting. And then we have Wolverine, who was very, you know, fearless and immortal. Well, not so much immortal, but, you know, he had regenerative abilities to help him stay alive. So I guess he could be immortal. But, you know, he lived through the centuries and whatnot. And so I think this is a good combination. And it's interesting because I believe in a previous video I did, I talked about how, you know, Keanu Reeves looked at Wolverine as one of his favorite comic book heroes. So it's ironic that while he hasn't actually been able to play Wolverine, he is, you know, creating a character of a hybrid that takes elements of Wolverine and making it his own. Now, I will say that I think this movie could very much be a TV show series or a movie, and I think that if John Wick ever were to stop, we could easily switch over to Berserker, and I think a lot of people would still enjoy it nonetheless. So what is my rating of the first issue of Berserker? I would give it 4 out of 5. I think that the graphics are awesome. My only gripe about this, there really wasn't a whole lot to really pick off of to, like, you know, knock it down. But if I had to give it a 1-point gripe, I would say that I feel like in the early pages we had less dialogue to help propel the story and relied more on the, you know, imagery and pictures and graphics to help do that. And while that did help, I don't think for a very first issue of kind of giving us an idea of who Berserker is and what's to come, that did a good job about that. Now, saying that, I think overall, once you get from cover to cover and you get to the very end and understand that in the next couple issues we're actually going to dive into the history of Berserker, that kind of makes up for it. But I wish, you know, in this initial issue we got more dialogue, you know, instead of one-word sentences with pictures, you know, even just one words. I wish we had gotten more of that dialogue in the earlier pages versus towards the very end. Should you read Berserker? Absolutely. I feel like this comic is going to make history in some ways. I know that there's special editions and variant covers and whatnot out there. I've ordered some variant covers and hope to be able to share those on the channel once I get those, but I'm looking forward to this comic book series. I don't know if I'll review every issue, but I'll probably try to do like maybe a beginning, middle, and end. That seems like a good way to do it. But if you enjoy reading about Berserker, please let me know in your comments below if you've already read the issue or if you're about to pick it up, what you think about my thoughts, and let me know in your comments below. And that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed, hit that like button for more videos like this one. Make sure you subscribe to the notification bell. And I'll see you guys next time on the Mashup.